Simon and the Collective. I'm writing to you for forgiveness because I did a terrible thing. I was blessed with a fabulous husband who wanted to be a farmer but was sadly a mere solicitor who worked in the city. Most of the week I never saw him because he frequented city wine bars and dined with clients, associates, and anyone really he could have fun with. He attended rugby, supporting his home team and taking clients, associates, and anyone really he could have fun with. That is not to say, however, I was not fun. I was then and continued to be really great fun.
I like this.
But my husband failed miserably to appreciate this.
Oh dear.
As a scene-setting opening paragraph, and that's pretty darn good, I have to say. We're kind of in this relationship. We know what's happening. His altar farming ego occurred at weekends when he came home and visited poultry auctions.
Poultry or poultry?
Yes, poultry. Poultry auctions. At that time, we were also blessed with 4 children. I produced babies, as my husband produced chickens, and the chickens produced chicks.
What?
We led an idyllic life. Easter Sunday was particularly special. Baby chicks in the little hands of my husband's gorgeous progeny. Chocolate and fluffy wuffy chicks. How could I not be happy? Well, I'll tell you how I could not be happy. There were chickens everywhere, and they were pooing everywhere. I slip-slided my way to the washing line, baby on my back, baby on my front. The little feathered darlings were encouraged into my kitchen, where they left their mark. I found myself responsible for feeding and caring for 4 children under 5. That's 4 children under 5, and dozens of stinking, pooping chickens. Husband, meanwhile, continued to attend rugby matches around the world and dine out with associates and clients, all in the name of furthering his very important career.
Don't think there's many in his corner right now.
However, the worst part of the situation, yes, it could be worse, was the cockerel. Yes, the bloomin' cockerel. Just when my gorgeous children began to sleep through the night and wake at 6 a.m. instead of 3 a.m., my husband's pesky cockerel would wake me up at first light. I was sleep-deprived following years of babies and very little help, but my husband's exhausting lifestyle meant that he would sleep through a screaming baby and have no idea that I'd been up all night. He would wake refreshed and cheerful, looking forward to another weekend of chicken buying and would-be farmer activities. I was getting cross and I hated my morning call. Cock-a-doodle-doo every morning, just as I nodded off from a night of baby comforting. So I asked my husband not to buy any more cockerels. I even begged him to get rid of a couple. Alas, to no avail. High-pitched bantam cockerels, low-pitched Orpington cockerels. We had 4 cockerels all going for it at once at 4 a.m. and he snored through it all. The Sumatra cockerel even attacked me as I fed it. Such an ungrateful bird. I nursed my wounds, protected my toddlers, and chased it with a stick, looking like a crazy woman. Which I thought it probably came quite easy to know that at this time. After months of this torture, I decided on desperate measures. I woke at 4 a.m. one morning, and leaving my sleeping babies and snoring husband, I jumped out of bed in a rage and headed for the chicken house, with a cat carrier under my arm. Still wearing my pyjamas, I marched up to the chickens, grabbed all 4 of them, bundling them into the carrier, put them in the back of my car, and headed to the next village. Some friends in this anonymous village had not sympathised with my complaints, even though next door to them were a couple who owned a handful of hens. So it seemed this would be a fitting destination, and I drove there with no thought but to offload these sleep-depriving critters into the neighbour's hen pen. Parked on the road and marched confidently into my unsympathetic friend's garden, stepping over the low wall into their neighbour's plot and placing all 4 cockerels into the aforementioned hen pen. I then left quickly in my car, drove home, climbed into bed without the cockerels, and slept blissfully until my husband woke at 9 a.m. He put on his would-be farmer cap, brought me tea in bed, and headed out to his birds. I lay in bed, sipped my tea, and smiled. My husband soon marched back in, as he couldn't find his testosterone-fueled cockerels, most particularly his prized Sumatran. I calmly suggested that the dreaded fox might be responsible, and he seemed to accept this explanation, although he was surprised by the lack of feathers. He then suggested he might need to go to another poultry auction to buy replacements. I calmly suggested that if another cock-a-doodle-doo arrived in our house, it would be cock-a-doodle dead in no time at all.
Great.
My husband might have suspected foul play at this moment, just getting that in before everyone does on the verdicts, but looked at me sipping my tea and wearing my pyjamas and knew that I'd just woken up, so it couldn't possibly have been my doing. I smiled sweetly at him as he completely failed to notice the mud on my pyjama bottoms. I, of course, continued to deny all knowledge, and I think it barely crossed his mind that I could do such a dastardly deed. My unsympathetic friends, however, couldn't understand how 4 noisy cockerels had ended up next door in the hen pen. In fact, the entire village was chatting for weeks about the mystery of the intrusive but unknown cockerels in the hen pen. Father Simon, I need merely forgiveness from the poor birds themselves for the fact that I grabbed them in mid-cock-a-doodle-doo by their legs, tore off to the next village at speed. It wasn't their fault. I am slightly ashamed. However, that said, I never want to see or hear them again. Now, what Fionnuala doesn't provide is any information about the future of husband.
Yes. You'd think not.
Because, you wouldn't be surprised if you picked the husband up and put him in the hen pen in the neighbouring village. Anyway, Fionnuala, thank you very much indeed for tonight's tale. Jules, how are you feeling about that one?
I was really worried when he started the story because I thought it was going to end up in a chicken nuggets scenario.
Oh, I see. No, I don't.
And I couldn't have ever forgiven that.
That wouldn't have made it through, I don't
That wouldn't
think.
have made it through.
No.
I'm not understanding even why this is a question of forgiveness. Undoubtedly, absolutely she's forgiven because, actually my husband's a bit of a farmer in his spare time as well. He's never done the cockerel thing, but I would, have the same reaction if he did.
Right.
And also...
Does he put on a cap at weekends?
And some wellies, yeah, and all that.
Pretend to be a farmer.
Yeah.
Let's go to a chicken's auction.
Let's not.
He's never done the poultry
Okay.
thing. That's not good. But the cockerels, I don't think there's any forgiveness needed there. They've ended up with a load of hens. What better place for cockerels to be? And she also sorted out the miserable friends who didn't have any sympathy. So, Fionnuala, you are completely and utterly forgiven in my book.
Forgiveness for Fionnuala. What do you say there, brother?
Well,
Matthew?
here I've got a couple of thoughts here. Number one is, who's letting the chickens into the kitchen? Surely there's a chicken run. I mean, little that I do know about poultry farming, but don't you have a chicken run where you keep the chickens? How are the chickens getting out of the chicken run and getting into your kitchen? Makes no sense. Number two, do you need more than one cockerel? Every cartoon I've ever seen, there's only one cockerel there, and he tends to do the cock-a-doodle-doo thing, and then that's it, and everyone else just gets on with their lives. Number two, number three, I'm losing count. Number four, why do we need, if we have all these cockerels, why can't we train these cockerels to be quiet at daybreak? If we can put a man on the moon, why haven't we managed to keep a cockerel stum when the sun rises? So I am going to forgive.